Go Media's Arsenal proudly brings to you our main event, Designer Face-Off! The following contest is a 2-on-1 handicap match. In the blue corner, hailing from Ypsilanti, Michigan, she's the passionately curious Brittany Barnhart. And her opponents, hailing from Schenectady, New York, they are Cinder Design Co. Fight!
Michael Rivette from Cinder Design Company.
I'm Christina Sharp from Cinder Design Company.
I'm Brittany Barnhart with Just Curious.
Nice. Now, we have three for you, Brittany, that we're going to ask. We're just going to team up against you on
Just
these.
bombard me.
Yeah. So maybe Christina wants to ask the first one.
Sure. So what would you say, what I have to actually read the question. Okay. What is one project or client that you feel really strongly that you want in the next few years?
Oh man, it's funny that you guys are asking this because I'm actually figuring that out today. Or really focusing it in. So a project or a client that I really want. Let's see. I mean, ideally in the next couple of years, I'd love to illustrate a children's book or work on some form of huge illustration project just because it's so fun and involved and you can take it through the story. So that's probably one of the bigger ambitions that I have to acquire over the next couple of years. Fingers crossed.
I think it's probably good to point out too that you and Christina and myself with Cinder Design Company, we started in April, basically. Yeah. So it hasn't even been a full year for either of our companies yet.
Right.
So it's kind of nice that we're both starting out and, figuring this stuff out together. And so I think a lot of our questions, not just for us and what we're bouncing ideas back and forth, but for anybody else that's just starting out, it might be kind of cool for them as well to see where we're at.
So do you guys have specific roles when taking on a project, or how do you balance who does what?
You want to start it, Christina?
Sure. I mean, I know between me and Michael, we're still starting to define the roles. Mm-hmm. We're finding that Michael is a lot stronger, speaking with clients, talking with clients. And then I guess I could say more skills the production side, I'm just faster. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing we've noticed a lot working together, because we worked for a couple of years together, but now working on our own, that's something that we're kind of owning up to. I don't know what you want to add in, Michael.
No, I think that's like you said, we worked with another agency. So before this, so as far as the design side of things, we already kind of had an idea of how we worked together. Mm-hmm. When it comes to actually working, the two of us, we try as much as possible to just do it together. So mm-hmm. we'll either share a screen or we're working, nice. Side by side, or however we can manage it. And it's basically no, change that or move that or do that. And then the other person will do it. And then we reverse the roles. And same thing when we're sketching ideas, we have two sketchbooks, but it's almost like one, because I will sketch ideas, hand it off. She'll mm-hmm. actually cross things out and change things. So when it comes to working, it's very collaborative, mm-hmm. but everything else now, we're really starting to, especially in this first year. And it's one of the things that we didn't really think about because we weren't exposed to that. We didn't really have to define roles. So like she said, okay, if I'm stronger in front of a client, now that's sort of becoming my role, but mm-hmm. it's never fully 100% my role, because mm-hmm. if I'm out of town doing something,
right. I have to be able to
we still need to be able to overlap. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it's been a little bit of trying to figure it out, and sometimes we argue and bicker about certain things, but we're getting there. Yeah, we're getting there. We're figuring it out. So
I find it really funny, how long it really takes to figure out how you work and how to work with another person. Because I feel like it took me about 6 months to actually hit a stride of oh, this is how I work during the day. This is how I'm productive.
Yeah. No, it's and that's another thing too for us. Scheduling was a huge. And I think Christina probably can even talk more to this, but I like having somewhat of a structure. I like having somewhat of a plan, but Christina really likes having a plan.
I like having the day like hour by hour planned out. We had to figure out. I mean, I'm a very task-based person. Like, if I can check something off a list, I'm happy. But and it wasn't until recently we were like, okay, we need to have a shared calendar. We need to, at the beginning of the day, plan out every single hour of the day so we don't lose track. And since we started doing that, it's been a lot more helpful.
Yeah. And it's every morning we'll get up, we'll have our like 15-minute, here's the things we need to do today. Some of them are ongoing, some of them need to be on that day. And then we look at our calendar and map it all out for the day. So we plan lunch, we plan if we're going to the gym, we plan if we're like just taking a break. This is, break time, whatever. And it's really it seems a little crazy, but for us, it's really helped us to kind of, you look at the day and you're like, well, there is no questions as to what I'm doing. If I'm not at the office or Christina's not at the office and she has to go do something, there's no question is like, well, is Michael just farting around today? It's like, no, he has to get these 3 things done. Right. So it kind of, it makes us accountable for what we need to do. So, it's definitely a new thing. We're trying to be super strict on that, but it's getting better. Especially, it feels weird planning our gym times, but
we have to.
Oh my God, it's bathroom break time. I gotta go.
To go back to your original question, there's almost like 2 parts to it. There's the business part, and then there's the design part. And I think both me and Michael are still figuring out the business side of it. So we're both very highly involved in doing all of that together. The design part is where it starts. Our roles are finally starting to develop a little more.
Yeah.
But it's taken a year to figure that out.
How about, I know we're asking each other separate questions, but how about for you? I mean, how does it work? Because you're primarily solo, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, just to bounce the question back on you, how is it handling all of it on your own?
It's really like time consuming. Like, there are times when, obviously, you guys know, like, you have to kind of reach out to people and do emails and just all this little mundane things. And I just keep thinking, I just want to create, I just want to make something, but I have to email these people. I have to take care of this,
Yeah.
So I'm kind of, I also kind of schedule my day out also. So I have a certain time when I go work out every day. I'm like, all right, between this time and this time before I leave, I have to get these things done. Afterwards, I kind of play by ear and, like, try to do more creative work. So I try to be super strict on my time for like client work, but personal projects, I just let loose and have fun with those.
It's so crazy how much time everything else takes.
Yes. Like, I hired a bookkeeper. I'm not dealing with that anymore. I was like, I want it done right the first time.
Yeah.
That was our attitude toward taxes. We tried to figure it out. We were like, let's hand this off to someone instead of spending an entire week trying to figure out how to fill out this one form.
I still need to call mine, but if there's like little tasks that I really don't enjoy, which the only thing that I've actually hired out is for bookkeeping, but obviously doing it all myself is time consuming, but I do get enjoyment out of it because it's like, man, look at me, I'm doing all this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's part of it. It's kind of nice knowing that's, you're maybe not designing all the time now, but you're in control, those taxes and the bookkeeping and all that kind of stuff. It's like, this is all part of it. And this is, what I'm in this for. So, but the accounting, we had to pass that off. We were looking at it and we're like, it took us 5 hours to get through one little part. We said, well, at this pace, it'll be 2017 before we get these taxes done.
We have work to do. Let's give it a go.
We got to get after that. So, have you or do you have any mentors? And what would you say are some of the important lessons you've maybe gotten from them, if you do?
Okay. I think a big one actually is Lenny.
Mm-hmm.
With his design, he's a huge mentor and friend to me. And I think a big thing that I've learned from him, I'm constantly learning from him just because he's done it for so long and he's so amazing at it. But probably one of the few things that I've learned is just to like keep chugging forward. Like, you're always going to have rough patches, but just keep going and you'll figure it out as you go. Work hard, be nice, stay humble,
Yeah.
be good to people. And then another one is probably Dustin Lee with Retro. I talked to him quite a bit, and it's just so funny to see the difference in who I talk to the most, like between Lenny and Dustin. They're like completely different people in terms of like what they do.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it's pretty nice. And like Dustin, he always brings new ideas to the table. So he kind of like gives me a new way of thinking. So those are probably two of the biggest like mentors I would call that I have in my life right now. And of course, like old instructors, but
it's nice having that where you can jump back to somebody and say, look, you've been going through this. I'm freaking out.
Right.
Have somebody that kind of just talks you off the ledge a little bit and kind of calms you down and helps you out. So I'm sure, it's a huge help, especially with those guys.
Oh yeah, and it's like funny because Lenny's done it for like a long time, and I feel like he's continuously helped me. He's like, no, like don't do this, or yeah, do that. So it's like kind of nice to have that sort of guidance because, like you guys know, like when you're doing it yourself, you're just like kind of going on this road, and you might not know what you're doing sometimes. So it's nice to have that, like yes, no.
Yeah. And I'm sure. Oh,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm sure too that Lenny has quite a few challenges that he runs into, and you see him go through those, and that just inspires you to get through these other smaller challenges that you're facing.
Oh yeah.
I was going to say it's nice, when you're, like you said, sometimes we're in a little bit of a vacuum. You're not part of a big company anymore. You're not. So especially with us, if you're sending out a bid or something like that, and maybe it's not getting a response, or it's getting a response and a yes too quickly, so you're starting to question the price and the quote, and it's nice when you have people that are in the industry that you can go to for those kinds of things that you trust and say, have a look at how I'm bidding these things, have a look at what I'm doing here, look at my contracts, because sometimes it seems guarded. A lot of people don't want to discuss money. They don't want to talk about their contracts. They don't want to talk about that kind of stuff because I don't know if there's just, this fear that, if you see what I'm doing, you may copy it, or you may undercut it, or you may whatever. But when you have that core group that you can go to, it's got to be just so much easier when you can just say, hey, look what I got going on here. I mean, does this look right to you? And have their opinions and their value. That's pretty great. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty great to have. How does that work for you guys? Do you guys have like mentors together, or do you have your own separate people that you kind of reach out to?
We have a lot of close friends who have pretty successful businesses, and we talk to them once in a while about stuff we're going through and how they would handle situations, contracts, bids, stuff like that. But me and Michael actually had a conversation last week about who we would consider our mentors, and it was interesting because I had a lot of designers I looked up to, but then we figured out that a mentor could be anybody. They don't have to be designers.
Oh yeah.
So we realized that both of us, our family had a lot to do with, where we want to go. And Michael, I think you said it was your grandfather?
Well, for me,
uncle,
it was my uncle. There's absolutely design mentors because, this is a field where it's difficult to understand it unless you're a part of it. You can understand some aspects of just business in general. But for me, one of the people that not design related was my uncle, and he's an engineer, and it's his approach to problem solving that kind of influenced me, and sort of his calm, just systematic method, where if it's just kind of almost sort of when you're building a computer and something fails on the computer, and it's just like you take one part out, okay, that wasn't that part, or you swap this next in, and you swap. So I think that's how I also approach design problems. Here's the design problem that a client is having, and I'm trying to look at a lot of these issues. And I think we do, for Cinder, it's not necessarily what's the just aesthetically pleasing solution. It's beyond that. It's here's the problem they're having. They're not making their numbers monthly, or they're not selling this, or they're not getting newsletters, or whatever. How can we, using design, systematically solve those problems? And so for me, that was a huge that was a huge mentor in my life, and it just like all different problems. And the other one was my Nana, and she was just like this very tough woman that just, it not necessarily was her way or the highway, but she just knew what she wanted, and it wasn't a matter of if it was a weird thing, that didn't matter to her. You know, if it was like, I'm not hurting anybody, this is who I am, and this is how I'm going to function. And I just, ever since, you know, being little, just really responded to that. You don't find that a lot of people, you know, some people want to just please and are afraid to sort of buck the system a little bit. And having a person like that in my life that kind of, she was a piece of work. She just knew what, you know, she was going to do. And I, you know, to this day, I pull from those people in my life. So yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
So Brittany, how does your daily schedule look? You know, what are the usual tasks you do, and what tools, what systems or software do you use to keep everything on track?
Okay, so
Good question.
it took me a while to figure out my daily schedule. I feel like I was all over the place for quite a bit. But over the last couple months, I've realized that I need to break up my day in like to sections so I can look at it a little easier, and it's not so overwhelming. So I usually wake up between like 4 and 6 every day, and then I'll try to do creative work in the morning just to not work on client work and just trying to get like the brain flowing and thinking and just feel good about the day. And then I might go work out then, or I might wait until like lunchtime to go work out. And then between like 8 and noon, I'll do my client work. And then after that, I'll do social media. And then towards the end of the day, I'll just keep doing creative work. But usually to like plan out my days, I'll use Google Calendar, just a lifesaver. It's awesome because obviously you guys know, like it hooks up to your phone. You get notifications all the time. And then I use old school planner and just write everything down. There's actually this technique that I've been using to get things done and feel more productive. It's called the 3-2-1 technique, and it's pretty fantastic. So I'll go through every day and I'll write down for the next day, what's one big task that I want to do that takes like 2 to 3 hours? What are 2 things that take like an hour to 2 hours that I have to get done? And then what are 3 small tasks that take like 30 minutes to an hour? So I kind of like, it puts like time blocks on your day. So I feel a little bit more productive and like, oh, this is going to take this much time. This is the big thing I need to get done. And then I'll just cross it off as I go. Cause I like to have that pen and paper feel of like, man, check, got that done.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I haven't heard of that.
I started using it maybe like a month or 2 ago, and it's been really great. I just need to be consistent with it, but yeah, it works fantastically. I love it. So
that's awesome.
Other than planner and that system, it's pretty straightforward. I just try to be productive during the day and be efficient, you know, not try to get too caught up on Twitter talking to people.
Yeah, right. It's interesting. I was listening to a podcast, and in it, the guy, he was freelance, but he was saying that for him, he only schedules roughly 50% of his day. So, or fills it 50%. And he says, you know, for him, if he's able to get what he needs to done in that amount of time, there's things that something happens, software crashes, you got to go back and start over or whatever. He wants to be able to plan for those things. But he also says, like, when he's booked, he can't function as well when he feels like it's just too stressful for him. And I thought that was an interesting, because we try to book everything and say, okay, well, you know, we did a full day and we feel, but when you plan that time to yourself and just say, okay, we're going to go see a movie today, or we're going to, you know, it's kind of the benefit of what we do now. As long as we can get the work done and done well, I think it's coming from that being at a firm that was, you know, you're here at a certain time, you leave at a certain time. There is no get up and go and do whatever you need to do. And we're still in that mindset. So it's kind of strange to take a step back and say, well, we're caught up. We're in a
Yeah.
good place. Let's take a half a day and enjoy ourselves and, and just kind of get away from the computers a little bit. So, no,
Yeah.
I think that's great.
That kind of reminds me, I've been listening to a podcast called Women Who Start Up. I think you'd actually really like it, Brittany.
Oh,
And a recent episode I was listening to, they were talking about work-life balance and how when you run a business, there isn't really balance. It's called work-life integration. And I thought that was so such a smart way to put it. And that's literally like what it is. Like you can't separate it because they're just one in the same. So I thought that was pretty smart.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. And we're the same way with you. We're huge fans of Google Calendar. We actually use Sunrise, which is basically just pulling
I've heard of that too.
We like that.
Same, but we also use so it can take all these different task management things that we use and it puts them all into one.
Awesome.
And I don't know. I think functionally it's better than Google Calendar because it's overwhelming sometimes. So we've been using it for 3 weeks now and we love it. It's so much.
And we basically have the same way where we have our work calendar, but my personal calendar is in there and Christina's personal calendar is in there. So, because it is one and the same at this point, you know what I mean? You need to know when that person's out of town or when they have a dentist appointment or when they have, and it's just kind of like, oh, all right, I know this is how busy our week is. You're gone 2 days. Let's make those 2 days lighter and then get everything done in the first. So for us, we have basically the 3 calendars that are just merged into one. And in the same way, you can see it on your phone, you see it everywhere.
Right.
So, it's a huge, huge benefit to having,
awesome.
Everything planned out.
And Sunrise has these nice little icons that automatically show up on things.
Yeah, we do love the little icons.
That's
I said, I was I'm going camping with my mom and icon with a tree showed up. I was like, that's cute. I like that.
Man, I wish I had somebody to work with. It's so alone sometimes.
Anytime you can jump on Hangouts with us, we'll just all work together. Chat away. It's funny because we'll be on Hangouts, but nobody will be talking. It'll just be the two of us sitting there just staring.
Well, it was an hour ago we were working on something and I was double clicking a lot because I had stuff grouped and I had to select something within the group and he was like, what are you clicking?
I was like, what could you possibly need to click so many times for?
So you turn the volume down.
Yeah, sometimes you have to mute things because it's just you hear all the little intricacies that are going on in the other person's life. So it's kind of
cat.
Yeah, the cat. Basically for us, our day is basically her clicking and making noise on the desk or saying, no, sit down, get away from that. Get away from that. That's our entire day. And
that's
just
awesome.
I'm really terrible to work with. It's true.
So I think we asked all of our questions.
Yeah, I think we did.